Perhaps our final Friday episode of the 2024 season for the Miami Dolphins. We're looking at the Dolphins and their Pro Bowl snubs. We're looking at player availability for Friday and a few final thoughts and game predictions here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, and the NFL Draft lead for the 33rd team. I want to give a thank you and welcome to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it. We live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Today on the show, we are diving in to a whole myriad of talking points, including Mike McDaniel speaking to the media within the hour of me recording the Friday show here, and talking about who's going to play in the game, who we're optimistic about, which is Mike McDaniel code for probably we'll see some of, or pessimistic, we're not anticipating seeing play. We did not kind of communicate doubtful or questionable for injury report designations, but we did talk about Tua Tagovailoa. We talked about Jalen Waddle. We talked about Teron Armstead. We talked about Anthony Walker. We talked about Jordan Poyer. So you, as a Dolphins fan, are absolutely not surprised at all to find out, hey, it's week 18. Hey, you're in a must-win situation. And X, Y, Z, A, B, and C for important players for your team are banged up. We don't know who's going to play. Mike McDaniel did, however, illustrate or communicate that the expectation is that Stu Ponley will make his second consecutive start at quarterback for the Dolphins, which makes it the second time in 3 years in which Tua Tagovailoa will not be available for the Dolphins in a must-win situation for a playoff, potentially for a playoff berth at Week 18. Both of those games coming, of course, against the New York Jets, the other one in 2022, when Skylar Thompson helped figure one out. The Dolphins won that game. Jason Sanders had a large piece of the puzzle in that one. And I have a feeling Jason Sanders will have a big piece of the puzzle for this Sunday as well. But we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. So what does this mean for Miami? With Tyler Huntley, obviously the style of play is a little bit different just because you are stylistically looking at the different kinds of players. I would hope this means that the Dolphins find some level of consistency with who is playing in what spots along the offensive line. That's harder or easier said than done because Teron Armstead, we don't know. Mike McDaniel said that one could go up to the final 90 minutes before the game. If I had to guess, I'd guess we're going to see Teron try and go. Based on Mike's messaging throughout the week, understanding like this might be it for Teron Armstead. I can imagine he's probably not going to want to miss the final regular season game, potentially hit the last game that he would suit up and have had to pull himself out of just before halftime of the game that he played before that. So I would guess Teron's going to go, which means Pat Paul is going to be the right tackle, if that is indeed the case. But that one is very much up in the air. I would love to see the team stay committed to Isaiah Wynn. Through 2 weeks of grading, Isaiah Wynn has graded comfortably better than Liam Eichenberg at the right guard spot. And if the Dolphins can have the same five guys start and finish the game, but if they do, you should be able to run the ball against the New York Jets because the New York Jets this season are a team that has experienced regression in their rushing defense. The Jets this season, teams have scored 21 touchdowns against the Jets. That's 29th. They're middle of the pack as far as yards. They are respectable as far as the yards per carry allowed that they've given up, but opposing teams have ran the ball third highest total against that defense than any defense in the NFL. So I would expect you'll see the screen game. I would expect you'll see, maybe we can get into, saw Miami be a little bit more selective as far as what kind of ball fakes they asked Tyler Huntley to do. I would expect that will continue. I would expect you'll see a recalibrated version of the Dolphins passing offense, but you hit the Jets with the screen game pretty hard the first time you played them. And at this point, you are literally trying to make it through to the end of the season and win one more football game and problem solve around the limitations that you have. And we know the limitations aren't sustainable, but Tyler Huntley, a quarterback for the Dolphins on Sunday, sounds like it's going to happen. Mike McDaniel said that he was optimistic about Jordan Poyer playing at safety. He sounded like he was optimistic about Jalen Waddle returning to the lineup as well, which would be a nice added layer for maybe how you can build some things off of jab, jab, jab on the perimeter and then go for a shot play. And that also is dependent on who is and is not playing for the Jets. The Jets, some pretty significant names on their inactive list through Thursday at practice as well. So there's storylines there to watch as far as the New York Jets and Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner and Elijah Vera Tucker, Morgan Moses. I mean, these are all meaningful players. And none of them were practicing as of Thursday. So we'll see what the injury report brings for the New York Jets as well. But from Miami's perspective, Waddle sounds like he's trending well. Anthony Walker will be out at linebacker, which puts Tyrell Dotson in position to start again. I think that's a good one for Miami as far as I don't think there's a significant drop-off between the two players. And Dotson's a player you might want to make a long-term decision on and re-sign to a new contract. He signed a one-year deal with Seattle this past offseason. So expect to see Tyrell Dotson. I would expect to see Jalen Waddle based off what Mike McDaniel said. I would guess, and it is a guess, not anything Mike McDaniel said, we'll see Teron Armstead, which means Patrick Paul at right tackle if that's the case. And please make that be the case so that we don't have to endure Jackson Carman at right tackle or Liam Eichenberg at right tackle, because Kendall Lamb went on injured reserve with what he stated was a disc in his back that was impacting his senses on the left side of his body. So a big time salute for me to Kendall Lamb. Great deal of respect for the role that he's filled for this team the last 2 years as a swing tackle who played almost half of his career snaps in these two seasons in Miami, in years 10 and years 9 of his NFL career, and has played well, been put in a lot of bad spots and played admirably well and been a viable NFL offensive tackle. So if this is indeed it for Kendall Lamb, happy trails to him. Obviously going on injured reserve, his season is done. And he said before the season that this would be his last season in the NFL. So best wishes to Kendall Lamb. Hope he heals up with his back, but leaves the Dolphins thin on the edge at tackle, which as a Dolphins fan in recent years, that is also not a surprise to you whatsoever. So Pro Bowl rosters came out. There's no Dolphins on the list. We're going to talk about that here next on this episode of Locked On Dolphins, so make sure that you stick with us. It's playoff time, and if you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action, and that's where PrizePicks comes in. If you love football, want a chance to win real money watching the games, PrizePicks is the place for you. It is the best way to turn your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on player stats like passing totals or rushing touchdowns. For a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money, you can make your picks in less than 60 seconds. Whether you're looking for a flex player to boost your payout or you want your cash quickly, PrizePicks has got you covered. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, it is clear that people are loving the PrizePicks platform. There's a special offer for our Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup at PrizePicks.com. Download the app today. Use the code Locked On NFL. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is sponsored by BetterHelp. What do you want your 2025 to be? Every January brings a new chapter, 365 blank pages waiting for you to fill. If that's a part of your life that you want to rewrite or a plot twist that you've been craving, why wait? Life isn't about fleeting resolutions, about taking control and becoming the author of your own story. Think of therapy as your personal editor, helping you craft the life you deserve, not just for crisis situations. Therapy can help you develop healthier coping strategies, improve your relationships, and empower you to be the best version of yourself. Whether you're facing a challenge or just looking for personal growth, therapy is a powerful tool to help guide your journey. Whether it's learning how to set boundaries or tackling stress in new ways, therapy can help you develop skills for a better tomorrow. Even if you've never tried therapy, the benefits are clear. Finding someone to talk to and gaining fresh perspectives can make all the difference in how you navigate life's ups and downs. Write your story with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. No Pro Bowl players for the Dolphins in 2024. A year after they had, what, 6? They had like 7 guys in the NFL 100 this past offseason from the 2023 season as far as like best 100 players in the league. And my feelings here are split because I think the vast majority of the household name members the Dolphins have who would be in consideration for the Pro Bowl honors. And I know the Pro Bowl game and Pro Bowl selection process is kind of nutty. It doesn't mean what it used to, but there's still players that have like incentives and dollars related to making the Pro Bowl. And there's financial incentives for players to make the team. And for some players, like it is a peer associated recognition that I think that there were some players on this team that did deserve to have and didn't get. But then there's some players that have gotten those flowers and that recognition before in years past that I really don't think would have been merited this year based on the play. Obviously, you have Tyreek Hill having a down season from a production standpoint. The snaps are up. He's played almost 200 more snaps already than he did last season. But the receiving profile is down. The touchdowns are down. The yards are down. It's almost half of the number of what he had last season. Obviously, the Dolphins, for the health and balance of their offense, they've redistributed a lot of that volume. But you look at the AFC wide receivers, and a guy like Zay Flowers makes it for the Ravens, and his numbers really aren't that much better. Tyreek almost has twice as many touchdowns and is within like 120 yards of what Zay Flowers has from a receiving perspective. But then you had like Brian Thomas Jr. from Jacksonville got snubbed, and he's in like exclusive air as far as receiving profiles for rookie wide receivers, and he didn't make it over. So like, I don't think Tyreek would have even been like the next in line at AFC wide receiver. I feel for Jonnu Smith, who unequivocally had a better season than Travis Kelce, but he doesn't play for the Chiefs and is in commercials and this, that, the other thing. Kelce had a ton more receptions, but he averaged 8 yards a catch. The production there was kind of hollow for Travis, and that's one of the ones where I felt like the name value versus the most deserving player for a Pro Bowl based on their production in their individual season was Brock Bowers, who has just been a rookie phenom. And Dolphins fans found that out the hard way when the Raiders came to town, and Brock Bowers caught every pass under the sun that day. But I was bummed for Jonnu Smith. And Jonnu talked to the media in the locker room after the rosters came out and was like, we played to win. But yeah, for this team to get no recognition, it's kind of a slap in the face, to which I said, good. You guys get mad about it. Get mad about it and take it out on the New York Jets, right? For no players, I don't believe they had any alternates either off that roster. But Jonnu Smith, I thought, was snubbed because he had a better season, in my opinion, than what Travis Kelce did. I felt for Jordan Brooks and Zach Sealer. I thought those were two other guys that don't have the name, brand, and value. And Zach, it's tough because he got left off in addition to Zach Allen with the Denver Broncos. Both those guys have 8.5 sacks. And I think those guys are both probably more deserving than Justin Madubuike, who had the big-time sack numbers last year, but had a down season this year. I thought both of those guys, Nnamdi Madubuike, changed his name this offseason. For both of those guys to get left off in favor of him is a bummer. And it's kind of a volume and a numbers game perspective where they only allow so many in. But I thought both Sealer and Zach Allen would have been more warranted with their play this season than Nnamdi Madubuike from Baltimore. And then Jordan Brooks, phenomenal season. Probably the best personnel move this team made from a long-term perspective. When you consider, they brought in Jonnu Smith on a 2-year deal. They brought in Calais Campbell on a 1-year deal, and those moves have done wonderfully for the Dolphins this year. But Jordan Brooks was he got a significant investment from the team, came in, and he's been the temperature checker on that side of the ball. He's been a leader. He's been tough. He's been a good tackler. He's made plays in coverage. He's almost played a few more plays in coverage. They move him all around. They play him on the end of the line of scrimmage. And the stats are there. He was another one. Him and Jonnu Smith were the two that I felt the most bad for, just because from a defensive tackle standpoint, it stinks that Zach didn't get it. But I felt like there was a logjam with numbers, and there was another guy that got left off that was equally as deserving as Zach was. So hopefully, this is a little bit of a reality check for this Dolphins team. And they had a lot of young players. They obviously have a mix of veterans like Teron Armstead and Jalen Ramsey, and the age of the roster this year, bringing in a guy like Calais Campbell. It's a blend of guys that are really young and are just kind of getting into the heart of their football careers, and some older guys. And hopefully for guys like Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane, and hopefully Chop Robinson obviously didn't experience the experience the team had last year. But for all of the successes, it can turn on a head that fast, right? And for this Dolphins team that was one of the darlings of the league last year for much of the year before it kind of fell apart in the last couple of weeks, because, stop me, you've heard this before, a bunch of players that are really important players on the team are kind of questionable and banged up, and some of them aren't playing for you in critical games down the stretch. There was no love to be found this year, including for players that I think deserved it. And many players did not deserve it because they didn't play to the standard they set last year. But if it changes that fast, hopefully that can be a nice catalyst and reminder to kind of set the tone for this offseason. Because there needs to be the competition, obviously, internally needs to be ramped up. And, this team has talent in a lot of spots. This team has potential. And that's why I look at some changes that they can make this offseason. And I hope to make them to bring in fresh perspectives and new ideas and some new players to kind of help push, as the saying goes, a rising tide raises all ships. And that's, I think, a big part of what this team is going to need, in addition to some personnel adjustments and tweaks, and maybe a few big tweaks or a few overhauls along the way in that process as well. But there should be no excuse for complacency or contentment this year. If you're a Dolphins player and you're content about the way that this season went, shame on you. Because, as Jonnu Smith said in the locker room, it's the individual accolades and not having anybody recognized is a bit of a slap in the face. But at the same time, you play to win games, and the Dolphins didn't do enough of either one of those things this year. And whether or not they have the right to play an 18th game is going to be dictated upon what happens on Sunday at 4:00. We're going to talk about that game and perhaps another game across the league next here on this Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. NFL playoffs are almost here. It's not too late to get in on some final regular season action with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many different ways for you to pick up the dub, whether that's players scoring touchdowns, how many points each team will score, the game total, the spread. You can pick your poison as far as how you want to play over at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. As of right now, the line movement on this game has flipped. The Jets favored by 1.5. This is similar to what happened with the San Francisco game, I believe. But the Dolphins opened at 1.5 favorites on the road in this game at the beginning of the week. Mike McDaniel obviously just sharing that the expectation is that Snoop Huntley is going to start his second game. And finally, after kind of holding steady at a -1.5 for Miami, the Dolphins are 1.5 point underdogs in week 18 on the road against the Jets. So the betting odds right now do not like the Dolphins to win their 9th game of the season. What do we think? We're going to get into that next here on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I'll tell you this right off the jump. I do think the Dolphins win the game on Sunday. Am I confident that the Dolphins are going to win the game on Sunday? No. There's not a lot of confidence that comes with your starting left tackle having his status very much up in the air for the game, and your starting right tackle being on injured reserve for 2 months, and the swing tackle being on injured reserve, and your rookie second-round pick at tackle looks good, but he might be needed at left tackle, which would mean you'd be on your 4th option to play at right tackle. And we saw what he looked like in Houston, and it was an abject disaster class as far as what that looked like. And your starting quarterback's out. And your best 2 pass rushers in the roster aren't playing and haven't played since last December and this September, respectively. And your second corner's out, and that means Aaron Rodgers is going to get up the line of scrimmage and have opportunities to try to find some mismatches with Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams. So you can hear me say all that, and you can say, well, Kyle, what do you like about this matchup for the Dolphins then? And it comes down to more, for me, about where the Jets are at. And it's always a bunch of guesswork as far as how a team is going to react when their season's over, their season's been over. But you hear kind of allusions to DJ Reed saying that he's excited to get to free agency and see what's next for him. That kind of mentality coming into a game. With Olu Fashanu and Tyron Smith out. You know, the Jets were playing Max Mitchell at one of their tackle spots. And if that's a matchup for Chop Robinson, then you feel really good about what that's going to look like. And the other one is Carter Warren. So those 2 offensive tackles, and then you consider Elijah Vera Tucker's out. So now you're looking at potentially Wes Schweitzer at the right guard spot. As long as you're not going to give up a bunch of vertical shot plays down the field, which Rodgers is probably going to take because it might be his last hurrah. He's out here hunting for touchdown number 500. But if you're going to take those shot plays, you need the protection to hold up, and I don't know that it will. So I would guess you're probably going to give up a few explosive plays in this game, not dissimilar to the way that it went last time. I'll say Jalen Ramsey gets a pick, though. I think Jalen Ramsey is going to get his revenge for how this played out the first time around. I do think I'll say you're going to give up 2 40-plus yard plays defensively in this game, just because I expect Aaron to have an abnormally high volume amount of them. But the vibes of this team, if DJ Reed's talking about free agency, and if Sauce Gardner can't go, and he left the game against the Bills, and obviously there's no CJ Mosley, and Quinnen Williams is out. So now you're looking at, you don't have the same problems as far as who to block on the interior when it's Javon Kinlaw and Solomon Thomas, who's a good player, but not a starter, and certainly not Quinnen Williams. I think you can maybe give a little bit of help to whoever the other tackle is, and your interior offensive line should hold up. Now, you're going to have to find ways to attack Jamien Sherwood, the linebacker, who had a great game against you the first time with a lot of range, but you had the opportunity to get some misdirection on him. So I think the Dolphins, you could put me down for 350 yards of offense. I'm going to say 20 points. I think the Jets are going to score 13. I think you're going to get enough turnovers. I'll say 2 again, because heaven forbid they get 3 in a game. But it's going to come at the expense of some yards and some chunk plays, but the turnovers are going to come in big spots. I think the Dolphins win this football game. And alternatively, I'm going to put my homer hat here on for no other reason than it would be the most hilarious turn of events that you could possibly draw. I do think the Chiefs win against the Broncos, where Carson Wentz is seeing all of these other former first-round picks being given second and third and fourth life as NFL quarterbacks, and this is Carson Wentz's opportunity. And yeah, they're going to sit key starters, but the Chiefs can't start or sit every starter. And I think with the first-round bye, they're probably not going to want to sit every starter. Andy Reid, divisional matchup, an opportunity to play spoiler against a young team in Denver that has a lot of pressure to win the game and make the postseason. But they, as a team, really haven't been there before with a rookie quarterback against Steve Spagnuolo. Give me something weird. And that's my last bold prediction, is that we'll have another game to preview next week. We'll see what happens. But that's where I'm at with it. Kyle Krabs, you can keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Appreciate you guys, as always, for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the football. Last regular season week of the year for the NFL. And whatever happens on Monday or on Sunday, I'll be there to walk you guys through it after the game. Looking forward to it. And I'll talk to you all then. Go Fins.